Welcome to MidLIFE Matters, where we celebrate women's wisdom and wit. I'm Georgian Lussier, your host, and I'm delighted to introduce today's guest, Susan Huizenga, the Executive Director of WPAA-TV. Welcome, Susan.
Well, thank you so much, Georgian, for having me here in my very own studio.
Yeah. And you've been WPAA-TV's uncompensated Executive Director for about 2+ years?
Just about. Prior to that, they never had full-time employees. It was always very, very part-time and predominantly volunteer run, 100% volunteer run. Obviously, as I'm uncompensated, it's still volunteer run, but the hours put into operating the facility have increased about 300-fold.
And what do you see as the purpose of community TV and how WPAA-TV is able to fulfill that purpose?
Community TV is a 30-year-old experiment. As a nonprofit, WPAA-TV has been in the community for 22 years. It was in the community other ways, other than a nonprofit, prior to its birth as WPAA Wallingford Public Access Association. We're still in our infancy. In fact, many community TV stations never get out of infancy. You're sort of always playing in the sandbox because you always have new users, new people learning what community TV is. It's a hard concept for people to understand.
Having hosted this show for 2+ years, I certainly can validate that. I still am learning in terms of the overall purpose and the parameters, the values that we're really looking to reinforce through everything we do with each guest I bring on.
So the values are predominantly free speech and giving a platform for citizens to talk about what they're passionate about, whether it's ideas, arts, just informing people from your point of view. The idea was to get a dialogue going, to have responsive community television made. So someone might have a strong opinion on a topic, and another person might respond with a TV show on the same topic, but the totally different opinion. That hasn't ever actually transpired. Predominantly, we see people who are very passionate about a topic trying to develop an informed program like yours, or people that are interested in the community, trying to share information through connections they might have, and those that have an interest in the arts tend to find it a place where they can get exposure.
And the mission of community TV really unfolds in terms of its programming.
Right, we've got a variety of programming. Whatever walks in the door is what your community TV station does. And it can vary from one week to the next, one quarter to the next. Actually, the programming that we have now is very diverse, and we also include, with the public component, government and education here in Wallingford, because we are obligated to make sure that statutes and laws and regulations associated with community TV are fulfilled, as we are what they call the CAP, the Cable Access Provider in Wallingford. So while there are 3 channels, we are ultimately responsible for all 3 components, which is a unique situation here in Wallingford. We have a program for musicians. Be the Music is about Wallingford musicians sharing their music through our media. When we play announcements that are essentially announcements of events or ongoing nonprofit organizations, we play music created by local musicians only. We have a guarantor program in which you don't have to make your own TV. You can get TV from other sources and bring it here to the community. In fact, you're a guarantor of a Catholic Mass because no local Catholic church is providing Mass. We have access to this Mass as a guarantor, interested in being sure that those that are homebound might be interested in a Mass they can watch on TV. You bring that program to Wallingford. Guarantors bring immensely vast array of programming, from Bernie Sanders town hall meetings to environmental concerns to a wonderful show, The Folklorist, that's represented by Craig Fishbein. And Democracy Now! Every day is being brought here by Michael Spiteri. We've got a vast array of people representing their interests, such as an interest in history or an interest in social movements, to Wallingford. It doesn't have to be made locally to be local. If a local resident is passionate about an idea or really believes in it or thinks the quality is great, they can bring it
The Lord be with
to
you.
our door and we'll share it.
Some of the other things that are on a regular basis are, I know, images from the Camera Club.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Getting the Camera Club involved has been wonderful because we've connected this older generation group of photographers with our youth team, and the youth team takes the images and puts them in a video slideshow. It took a few years of coaxing, but we finally got them to submit to us their contest winners on a regular basis, and now you can see their beautiful photography, again, as a short video interlude. Predominantly at 5 and 6 o'clock in the evenings, we show shorts, things that are under 15 minutes, that are created with some sort of a local content.
And such things as the Grange.
The Grange got very involved last year, so we had a little short about their chicken barbecue, which was adorable. They also had regular meetings. Bee Enthusiast was one of their guests, and we had that, the recycling coordinator. So any nonprofit that has a regular meeting can borrow our equipment. Our equipment is made available at no cost. You merely establish that you're a Wallingford resident. You give us your credit card. Now, we do make a copy of your credit card because you are usually walking out the door with a minimum of $2,000 worth of equipment and sometimes up to $6,000 to cover a program that you've already put a lot of energy into, and now you're just adding the camera in the room.
And then you have Same Day Sunday.
Yes, 3 churches: Wallingford First Congregational Church, St. Paul's Episcopal Church, and the First Congregational Church of Cheshire. Their volunteers capture their service, and they bring DVDs into us, and we put them on the very same day. We're the first community that has ever done it the very same day that the service has been held, and it's really been positively received by those that are homebound. Other churches can do this. They can borrow our equipment if they don't have their own yet, and Same Day Sunday can be expanded to many more churches.
Talking about churches, the synagogue, are they sponsoring a Holocaust event?
The synagogue just became aware that they can participate as an organization, and they represented 3 Holocaust stories. They are stories that are timeless. So they are now in our archives, and we can play them at appropriate times during the year.
And the Spanish community of Wallingford?
Again, another first. For 10 years when I was a volunteer, there was always talk about, can you have Spanish language content? And the concern was, would you know what they were actually saying, and how would you vet it? Well, there is a broadcast organization out of Germany, DW, that does the same content in English and Spanish, and they make it available through a grant. And I applied for this program and was able to maintain it when they were considering discontinuing it because not enough stations had picked it up. So during the middle of the day, we play back-to-back programs that are very current news, science and technology, global issues, European news, first in English, then in Spanish, and then vice versa, so that someone who's learning to speak either language, either English or Spanish, has the opportunity to have good quality content, learn about the world and hear about news and events, and become very current and learn the language at the same time. This program has been going on. It started as a pilot in the summers, a couple of summers ago, and now it is daily. And Scalp, they have our channel on in their waiting room, and they play this content on a regular basis. They've been a great supporter and user of community TV in the last 2 years.
And then last year, I believe, the studio received regional recognition.
I didn't expect to get it my first year out. I was really pleased that in 2013, for a station of our size, we received overall excellence for New England. We actually had 600 hours of local programming that first year, and we were up against organizations that have been doing really great and supported from their community TV for 20 years. In Wallingford, community TV has not been supported for 20 years. So that was a great honor to receive this, our first year out, at least my first year out as executive director. We're trying again for this year.
First got involved with community TV when you were president of the League of Women Voters in the 80s. And I understand you were also one of the original incorporators of the first nonprofit station in Connecticut.
CTV, Citizens TV, represents New Haven, Hamden, and West Haven. there's only 3 channels supporting all of those 3 communities. It was the first nonprofit established because there was some activity in community TV prior to that, but it was the first time a major cable company actually underwrote a nonprofit entity being created to do community television. 6 years I was president of the League of Women Voters of New Haven, and the advocates were relentless in trying to get our attention. The League of Women Voters, why are you not interested in free speech? It's very much the core of democracy. And I kept saying, I'm busy. I have bottle bills and environmental action issues and women's rights. And the list went on of the number of committees. And the League was a women's organization. And at that time, women's organizations were having a hard time themselves keeping members. And, our lives were changing. We were in the workplace. I was working full-time. So being League president was a strenuous and demanding volunteer activity. And then, of course, election season. You registered voters. You went and got election returns. You did candidates debates. In fact, I was the president when the very first local candidates debate was supposed to be on C-SPAN. So that was my first real engagement. This was my introduction. I hadn't gotten behind community TV yet, but C-SPAN was coming to New Haven, and they were going to have a satellite. Oh, the whole thing fell apart in the end. We did have over 300 people in the church to see this televised event that never got televised. But it was my first experience with the potential of television, and it was kind of the thing that turned my head around and said,
hooked.
okay, I
Yeah.
got a little bit hooked. I looked a little bit more into it. And after that, I gave up the League and decided I could do more for community service with community television, and I could do that in any community that I lived in. And so I became more of an advocate for community TV than the League, because you supported nonprofits, you supported citizens' ideas. I was, again, getting more interested in the arts. I was a published poet at the time. My son was getting interested in poetry. And when I first came to Wallingford, that was really where my focus was, trying to get the arts and performance venues established here in the community. We used the ice cream shop downtown and Planet Bean at the time. But then what happened was MLK Day. I couldn't get people to come from New Haven into Wallingford for anything. It totally blew the arts scene that was starting in Wallingford apart because we could not get people to come into this community. And so then I readjusted, and I was being asked to get involved with community TV. So I finally decided, okay, that's where I will start putting my imprint on the community.
And you moved to Wallingford, I understand, like 1995?
Yes.
Okay.
I originally was shocked because I really thought that Wallingford was a progressive community, because when I first visited as the president of the League, there was a community TV set up in the library, and I said, wow, they actually are ahead of their time. This is absolutely amazing. So when I was looking for a place to live, Wallingford was one of those places I considered, because I really had high expectations that community television was pretty much established there. But it turns out that in 1993, there was some kind of a division here in the community, and the 3 elements, P, E, and G, public, education, and government, were split apart. And that's when the nonprofit was formed, and in order to get anything on TV, come to find out, I needed a key to the building, which meant that some member of my family had to be on the board. And it was really hard to get television created when I first came in. And essentially about 3 shows come to mind that over the years were done by the community members. Tom Dacey, who's also his show is as long-standing as this organization, had Talking with Tom. And there was Planet Access, a sci-fi club and group, was very interested in that, and they had a show for a number of years. And John Sullivan had a variety of, John Sullivan talks to people in some fashion or other. And so that was basically the core shows that were available to this community with the churches, and an occasional thing that the board members of WPA did, like Memorial Day Parade or something of that nature. So the programming was very, very limited. And in around 2002, I believe, Comcast and AT&T, things were changing, and there was a regional channel at the time where you could get training, but that regional channel was negotiated away. I was lead negotiator as a cable advisor appointed by the mayor to look at the structure of cable television and community TV in this, what they call a franchise area. And the community said, we still want to be local. We still want to be the town model. That's rare anywhere. There's a town model in the Hartford area, and there's a town model from Madison to Wallingford. That means Little North Branford has to do pretty much what Wallingford has to do. And so there was some concern about keeping the town model. There was hope that there would be some remodeling and some merging of some of the channels. That did not happen. So as a result, some of Wallingford's funds go to the smaller communities of Madison and Guilford and North Branford. And I felt a little guilty for that $20,000 going away because I was the one that lived in North Branford at the time. I was president of their Totucket TV, and I advocated strongly to have a baseline from which to operate. And there's a rationale for that. But the better rationale in 2002 would have been some merging, because I believe for 10 years in North Branford, they literally had nothing on their channel. And to operate at a budget less than ours is a serious challenge. If you don't have the support of the community or the support of the local government, actually merging all three components together, such as North Haven and Madison and East Haven do, it's even more of a challenge because people get confused. Well, what's that channel? I get calls for government TV often because they think that we are the ones that are running the meeting shows. So it's very confusing to the community to understand what is this thing, community TV.
Aside from those governance challenges, you certainly have the building that has been established during the time that you've been around.
Yes, as a volunteer, I actually was assigned to a committee called the Building Committee, and so my actual accountability to run anything here at WPAA-TV has only been 2.5 years. I was an advisor helping with complaints regarding cable and how all 7 towns actually managed their PE&G for 10 years as a representative of Wallingford. But I was assigned to this building committee, and at the time we were looking at the building next to the town hall. That fell through. Story I care not to go into, but it didn't end well. But I continued looking and found this particular location, 28 South Orchard Street, which was owned by an individual who was willing to hold the mortgage, Paul McNally. That was really important because getting a mortgage for a nonprofit is not the easiest thing to do. The building was very limited. We had to do the electric, the plumbing, got all the walls. It was a major renovation to get up to livable standards and meet OSHA requirements, and then have handicapped access and fire escapes and a sign that could be seen from the road. It was a long endeavor, but there was a solid core of blue-collar workers and volunteers from the community that just gave and gave and gave. They gave their time and their talents, and it was just the cost of the materials, really, that we used to bring this building to what it is today.
Let's go back into your life a little bit in terms of your background. You have 2 master's degrees, as I understand it. One, research and evaluation, which you completed pretty close right after college, and then the second at age 50 in digital media. And then you have a 32-year career as a business analyst. So how do you think your extensive volunteer background, your creative pursuits, and then all of your analytical responsibilities have complemented and informed one another?
It's always almost been a bipolar experience. You know, I'm very much interested in the arts and performance and writing and potentially being a poet and maybe having a very quotable quote. When I was a young girl, I always wanted to be in the Reader's Digest, because I thought those quotes in the Reader's Digest were just, the most impressive thing. But I really needed to have employment. I was the breadwinner of my family, and I actually took on a number of additional responsibilities. I've been a mother of several children. I've taken in homeless over the years. So I've always kind of been balancing community service with my work. And one of the things that kind of brings it all together for me is just this philosophy of being, respecting where people are coming from and trying to be generous with them. And as a result of that, I looked into how to transform my research degree into a business function and was employed at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Connecticut. And that organization transformed a lot, so I was able to transform with it. And I got to work with people around the country because we extended into New England, and then I was on conference calls. My last 4 years, I was telecommuting, working with folks in Virginia, Colorado, Kentucky, Ohio, you name it. It could have been anywhere. So it was interesting to have that very analytical approach to things, but I was always assigned strategic projects and had to take the big picture and the person on the ground into account. For the first, I believe, 12 years of my 32 years, I lived in New Haven. I was on the bus from New Haven, and I was the only person that was on a salary on the bus. And I knew everybody on the bus, and they came from a variety of neighborhoods that I worked with as a League of Women Voters president. So they were kind of all my friends, but I realized that I was different than them when the bus was late. It was contracted by Blue Cross Blue Shield. The bus was late, and they would all get docked. They couldn't dock me. So that was early in my career, the first 2 years, because I was told that I wasn't going to last beyond 2 years because I took too much of an interest in things that were not my concern. Well, it was my concern. These were my friends. This was my community. And my community has always been my concern. So those folks weren't going to get docked anymore. And they no longer had to take a corporate-sponsored bus. We put Connecticut Transit in place, and they could come in late if they needed to instead of losing a whole day. So I've never separated community advocacy from my work. Sometimes community gets the task-oriented person, but they've never really been separated. And I was told very early on, because I thought I was going to be a social worker, you take it home. Yeah, I do take it home. And thank you for Obamacare, because with that, I have been able to make that commitment to give to the community. Here, I made the commitment for 5 years. I'm still trying to find someone who can fill the position. In 3 years, this organization will be able to probably hire an ED, at least half-time, if not three-quarter time. And that's where we're trying to get the organization to, and business and community kind of always mingle in my life. Can't keep them apart.
And you were the oldest of 6.
Absolutely.
First in your family to go to college. And who influenced you to pursue a life of social advocacy and engagement?
Grandpa, his name is Heman Higby. He lived in Vermont. When I was graduating from high school, he was the volunteer fireman of the year for the state of Vermont at age 75. He was doing things like building ice rinks for the community. So all of these community projects and the idea of community projects kind of came from how he interacted with his community. So he was my idol. My dad, I got a lot of my dad in me. I have these eyes that kind of bug out sometimes when I'm kind of like trying to figure out what's going on. And my dad had that look as well. But he was very much into giving individuals respect, having them earn their place and their role. I invest in you if you invest in yourself, I'll invest equally until you blow it. We'll talk about it, give you another chance, but you can't blow it with me twice. So I get a little dad influence, Heman influence. And Heman, a poem called Heman is one of my favorite accomplishments as a poet.
Heman, a man from Vermont. What makes America work? Grandpa slipped his soul into conversation like a late-night visit to the cookie jar. Clandestine spirit, satisfaction, sweet energy. His eyes twinkled with exclamation. It's people. I suspect this old Democrat who fettered party fundraising letters with the lavishness of a nesting oriole took a vital life step the day this question, what makes America work, infested his psyche.
I'd like to end with a opportunity for you to give advice to your younger self. So what would you tell yourself, dear Susan, at 25, at 40, some earlier point in your life?
Dear Susan, you proved that you could take care of not only yourself and others, but it was that fear of not being able to take care of myself that directed a lot of what happened in my life and some of the challenges that occurred. So I would have told that younger self, put yourself first. You have to be strong in order to really be able to help others. And that advice, I think, kind of came back at 40 as well, because I didn't really learn that lesson very well until quite late. And I'm still struggling with it, because, as I just said, I kind of keep always putting others first, enabling situations so that others can have part-time jobs or, get off the street. So my 22-year-old self should have been a little bit more confident. But I believed then that there was maybe no more causes. The Vietnam War had already happened, and what was this thing, Nicaragua and the Contras? I didn't understand it. I didn't think there were going to be any more causes. So I was always looking for the next cause. My dad, when I graduated from high school and was the first to go to college, as you mentioned, he said, all you need, my dear, is a brick and a placard, because you seem to want to rally for some cause, no matter what it is. I'm a little bit more discreet in picking my causes than my dad perceived of me, but there's always a cause. There's always someone to help. There's always a broken wing. There's always, cats and dogs and people that are strays. And so that younger self, confidence.
We'll finish up with a quote that you identified from Georgia O'Keeffe that you like. Hope I do it justice. Whether you succeed or not is irrelevant. There is no such thing. Making your unknown known is the important thing, and keeping the unknown always behind you.
The unknown is what guides us. Serendipity is also a wonderful thing to have in your life. Just follow the path that's there and discover yourself along the way.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Susan. And please tune in to your other fascinating women on future segments of MidLIFE Matters. Georgian Lussier, your host. Thank you for joining us.